Hello and welcome to Spartan Chess Group. This is FIDE instructor Lawrence Tavagwisa. Today we want to look at the importance of controlling the center. And for that we are going to look at a game that I played against William Kamberipa as black in the Premier Chess League. Let's take a look. So the game started with d4. I played knight f6, c4, now e6, and we quickly had the Catalan with g3, bishop g2, castles, and I chose the open Catalan with d takes c4. So knight b d2 was played. He wants to take back on c4 with the knight, c5, knight takes, and knight c6. So it's always good to let your opponent take first. And here I want him to take on c4, which on c5, which he did. D takes c5. I took with the bishop, and bishop g5 was played. Since I don't want to exchange queens here, and I would rather let him take than me taking, so I just played queen e7, hiding my queen, and preparing the d8 square for the rook. So queen b3 was played. Now h6, just trying to ask whether he wants to give up the bishop pair or not, and bishop f4 was played. Now knight d5. So already we see that most of the activity must be focused along around the center for more piece activity. Now the knight here is better on d5 than it was on f6, but still white cannot afford to just give up the bishop pair right now, so he went back with the bishop d2, now b6, preparing for bishop b7, and after rook f d1, played bishop to b7. And now we see that this bishop in the long diagonal, it also has some form of influence in the central squares, especially the e4 and d5 squares, even if these knights are still in its way. So rook a c1, and we both bring our rooks to the center. So now both my rooks and my opponent's rooks are in the only open files available on the board, on the e file and the c file. So queen a2 was played, and this is where I think my opponent started to go wrong, because in general you should be playing in the center. That's one of the key principles in chess. Those are the basics. You should play in the center. Now with queen a2 is misplacing the white queen in a way. So but the idea is to play b4 here. This is the idea here, is to kick away this bishop or to try and exchange it after bishop d6. So I saw this idea in advance and I played a5 here, just to keep that bishop on c5 where it has influence in the center, especially on this d4 square, and the diagonal going all the way to g1 where the king is. So queen b1 was played, and he's still insisting on maybe playing b4 at some point, or just bringing the queen closer to the center. So now I played e5, and this is in a way going with the way my pieces are already arranged. And as you can see, all my pieces are focused in some way close to these central squares, these four important squares. And when we are talking about the center, these are the squares you want to make sure you have some form of influence with your pieces. That's where the pieces actually show their greatest potential, when they are closer to the center or actually in the center. So after e5 we played e4, trying to also challenge the center and kick away the knight. Went back with the knight f6. So even though I moved the knight away from the center, the knight still has some squares it's attacking on those four squares I just showed you earlier. So after knight f6, now bishop e3. He wants to exchange one of my strongest pieces, the dark squared bishop. But I saw that if I exchange this bishop, then I no longer have much of the initiative I used to have. So here I found a very nice way to try and keep my bishop there, or at least get a pawn along the way. So knight d4, and I'm already threatening to play the knight to e2 if he doesn't take. So he took with the knight. Now he takes d4, attacking the bishop. So the bishop has to move away, and the only logical square is to go back to d2. So bishop takes e4, and I win a pawn temporarily here. So after b4 is getting his pawn back, but however I now have a very dangerous passed pawn here on d4. So I'll give back the pawn, but I'll have to make sure to keep this pawn alive on d4, as it is very strong, and since it's in the center and there are still some pieces on the board, this pawn should be very dangerous. So after b4 I exchanged the queens and gave back the pawn this way. So if he takes, which he did, took on b5, now this pawn should decide the game. The passed pawn I have on d4 should be, this position should be winning, and as we can see, the knight is now misplaced on b5. It doesn't have any really good squares to come back to. Both my rooks are in the center. The bishop is well placed in this diagonal, and after he took on b5, I simply played knight e4, and just to demonstrate the full power of my pieces, especially when they are playing in the center. So bishop e1, of course there's not really much to do in this position, because I want to play my pawn to d3 and open this diagonal again to attack the f2 pawn. So I played bishop e1, and the pawn is just rolling all the way to d2, rook b2. Maybe he thought this would stop my pawn from going to d2, but played d2 anyway. So the game went on for a few more moves before my opponent resigned, but as you can see, this position is now already lost, and it seemed like it's simple, but I just had to follow that simple basic rule of playing in the center, especially with all your pieces. Everything you do in the opening, it has to do with the center, unless the center is closed or you are going for a queenside attack or a kingside attack. So here, as we can see now, I'm just winning material, because if he takes with the rook, I'll take with the knight, and if they take with the bishop here, then they're pinning themselves. I'll just take, for example here, if they take, I'll just take on f2 and win an exchange. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave some comments in the comment section. Thanks for watching.